Ladies and gentlemen, to Sketchy Ideas, a live point counterpoint video podcast where we illustrate and debate concepts surrounding leadership, business, personal achievement, and six thinking hats in a way that may make you think twice before you implement that new idea you just learned all about on the internet. Welcome. I'm Michael Rampolla.
I am Brad James. And I'm
Brad
on the
James
move.
is on the road. He is on the move. He is on delay. He is on top of it. And today, for episode 95 of Sketchy Ideas, we are calling this Make Meetings Matter, how to fill your day with productive collaboration and fewer naps on tops of conference tables. But first, a word from our sponsors. Brad, that means you.
Hey, friends. So we're nearing the end of quarter two. Quarter two typically means that you're really looking at sales goals and marketing goals and all that stuff. If you have not done that, time to get some help. Email my friends over at Cream City Marketing. Email Erin at creamcitymarketing.com and she'll help you out. Back to you.
There we go. If you are or know someone who is in middle school or high school and they are looking for something to do the week of June 19th or the week of July 10th, have I got an opportunity for you? I want to tell you about the WASC Leadership Camp. It's an amazing opportunity for high school and middle school students to really come to understand even better and then leverage the leader that is inside each of them. This organization has been doing this work for over 80 years, and it's amazing, transformative work. It's the kind of transformative work that professionals pay lots and lots and lots of money for over the course of a year, and this organization gets it done in a week for just over $400. So I can't tell you how much this organization has meant to me when I was a student and now as an adult, and I want to bring that opportunity to you and the students in your life as well. How do you get registered? It's very easy. Go to wasc.org and you can get signed up today. If you're going to send somebody to the high school camp that week of June 19th, I will see them there. Tell them you heard about us on Sketchy Ideas, and I'll even sign autographs, because why not? And if you're going for the middle school camp, that is the week of July 10th. We hope to see you and your high school students there. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be decidedly unsketchy, and it's going to be an amazing opportunity. So hope to see you at the WASC Leadership Camps this summer.
And he's going to sign autographs. Wow.
And he is. I'll sign any. No, I shouldn't say. I'll sign just about anything. I should caveat that. Lessons learned. All right. Thanks, folks, for joining us again. This is episode 95, in which Brad and Michael explore all the sketchy ideas related to making meetings matter. You know, as a participant in many not so great meetings, I have taken naps, not on purpose, sometimes on purpose, on a conference table or two, or in that comfy swivel chair in the back of the room. I don't know, Brad, have you? Is it just me? Am I the only one who sometimes catches up on sleep during what otherwise should be a really important meeting?
I can't say that I've done that recently, but in the past, yes, I've definitely done that. I think.
All right, so
I think there's a lot more people who
probably
wish they could sleep through meetings. Period.
Right. Well, and in this day and age, it's like, oh, my camera's broken, right? Or do you remember in early Zoom days when people figured out how to replace their video with the loop, and that was your way to get out. Yep. I'm not saying I tried that.
The SNL skits from early pandemic.
Yes. Don't take the computer in there. The idea behind making meetings matter as a participant, we got 2 weeks leading into this, right? First, we talked about why in general meetings suck and why they can be better. It's all about the design. Last week, we talked about how to be a better leader of meetings. Now, let's assume that those two things have happened and you're now participating in a well-designed and well-led meeting. But even if you're not, because maybe they haven't seen those shows yet, we want to tell you what you can do to make it a productive use of your time, kind of no matter what. Because there's going to be stuff that shows up on your schedule that's a meeting that somebody else called and it's not yours and you got to be there. You can either use that time to catch up on emails and naps, or you can actually use that time to move your work forward. I'm going to encourage the latter option, assuming that the first one is not an option, because we should really be engaged and plugged in and active listeners. And Brad, you said that active listening is actually one of the best ways to be a good meeting participant. Is that right?
That is correct. I think if you're talking about, especially if somebody has set the table for you, it should be very easy for you to engage in the discussion. At the end of the day, the discussion is the point of this. I mean, as I said prior, if I wanted to go to a lecture, I'd go to a lecture. But the idea of a meeting is a meeting has discussion, has back and forth, has quality. I would say quality challenging of conversations, if it needs to be in that point. Because at the end of the day, if you understand the goal of what the meeting is for, then it should all be good. But that means that the leader's done their job. But if the leader's done their job and they've laid out how this all needs to work, and they go into a meeting and they end up doing this and they hear crickets back, that means the rest of the team is not actively engaged.
That's a bad sign.
Yeah.
It's a crickets, bad sign. Any questions? Lots of dead air, right? One person talking and there's more than one person in the meeting. That's bad thing. So assuming the table has been set well and we've got a little three-part, I like this. It's good structure, we've got clear goals, and we've got engaging content. Assuming we're walking into that table stakes, right? That's there. Now what? How do I work within the structure, accomplish the goals, and engage with the content?
Well, if you're going into a meeting, you probably understand what your role is on that team, and it will evolve. But if you're invited to a meeting, and here's something else to keep in mind. Being in a meeting, you are not entitled to be in meetings. If you're in a meeting, you have to treat it as a privilege of discussion.
You were invited. You didn't have to be there.
Yeah.
Which means that invitation can also be revoked as necessary.
Yes. I've done that. Makes it interesting topic of conversation after the meeting.
Yeah. So this will be your last meeting. Thank you for being here, though. We appreciate you. Yeah. Oh, I liked it. I like your point. It's an invitation, and therefore we should treat it as such, right? Like you got invited to a party, you got invited to an event.
Right.
I don't think people think of it that way. I think people often think of meeting participation as a duty, as a right, instead of as an opportunity.
Okay.
Because if it's an opportunity, go ahead.
And I also think that if it is an opportunity, it's also an opportunity for you to understand and learn self-awareness within that team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because as a teammate in a meeting, those are the times where you're going to discuss active steps moving forward. You're going to pick up on how other people communicate. You're going to pick up on how focused the team is on results, and how structured or loosely structured things are, which are all important. But the only way you can really grasp that is if you're actively listening. I don't know if do you have any guidelines for somebody who's new to a team as to how they should approach meetings?
Well, I absolutely. And I think one of the things to know is pay attention. Like if you're getting an agenda in advance, like do your research. Like if I'm walking into a sales conversation with somebody, I've done my research, right? I know who they are. I know their background. I know their company. I know why I'm talking to them, where I met them. I'm doing all that research. If it's a meeting, I should do the same kind of research. Who's going to be in the meeting? What's the agenda? What came before this? What's the goal after? Put the meeting in context so I can put my participation in context and bring value to move the points forward. If I'm just there to hold my seat down, right? I'm like a guest seat filler at the Oscars. I have zero value except for my physical presence. That's not a good way to participate in a meeting. You might as well bow out. You might as well get that time back and do something else. But if I'm going to engage with the content and provide value,
that's why you're there, right? Unless that's why you're there.
That's a different thing. Well, you know what though? If
Well,
that's true, I should at least know that. If I should, your job here is to make the
yeah,
room look full. Thank you for letting me
yeah.
know. I can do that, and then I'll know to keep my mouth shut too.
Or if you're not the leader of the meeting, but maybe you're the manager of the leader of the meeting, and they invite you to the meeting.
Hmm.
Typically, that happens for one or two reasons. They're trying to reset things, or
Right.
they're trying to add some. They're actively trying to make people engage in the meeting.
Right.
So that's why I bring that up, because I think I now, as time moves on, and I begin to hand off responsibilities of leading meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and finding myself more in that person who attends the meeting and is there more
Sure.
to listen and give constructive feedback, either during
Yes.
or post.
So that's a role that you might play, right? Observer and giver
Mm-hmm.
of feedback. And if you're ever unsure what your role is in the meeting, simple solution, folks, you ask.
Yeah, just ask.
Right? It's my favorite solution to many complex problems. You ask.
Yep.
How am I supposed to know
Yeah,
that?
ask.
You ask. I don't know what motivates my
Yeah.
people. How do I figure it out? You ask them. How do I
You
know what my
ask.
role is? You ask the organizer, what do you need me to do here?
You
What's my
ask.
role? And
Yes,
that's two of the things
exactly.
to think about ahead of time. The other thing to think about ahead of time is your goal. So there's the goal of the meeting, hopefully clear from the agenda, but you should also have a selfish goal. I use that word intentionally, a selfish goal for the meeting so that you have some skin in the game for the outcome, right?
Yep.
I should have a personal reason for being there, something I want to get out of it, not at cross purposes with the goal of the meeting, but in line with that framework of the meeting.
Yes.
And then I'm going to be that much more engaged from the get-go, right?
Yes. And if you don't have that goal,
so how do you,
again, ask, right? Work with somebody who's invited you to that meeting, because typically if you're part of a team, you're going to leave with action items, and those action items will end up being like, your goal is to understand exactly what the action items are and how they pertain to the larger goal. But if you're new and you don't understand what the goal is, and let's just say you can't get a hold of anybody, right? The goal should be to listen, understand how the team works, understand where the details and the chips are falling in the team to be able to work together and work through any challenges after the meeting.
Now, note what Brad said there, and it's exactly in line with how you create good active listening opportunity. Step one, there's two ways to actively listen. One is to respond, and the other is to understand. The more important one is the understand one. To Brad's point, even if you don't say anything and you understand what's happening and you come away with value add and you get better context, you've done your job. So many people, and I know I'm not the first person to say this, I'm actually borrowing this idea. They listen to respond, not to understand. And it's a different kind of listening. So if you're there to listen to understand, you'll actually achieve that outcome. If you're listening to respond, whether or not you understand is a guess, is a coin flip.
Yep.
So we've got know your goal, so understand the goals of the meeting and what your sub goal is. Understand your role by asking the organizer, what is the role you need me to play here? And then another part we're going to tie in here is being an active listener, listen to understand. And if I have a goal, then I'm going to listen better to understand. I mean, that all frames up and works together. Within the structure, then let's add in something on how do I work in the meeting within the structure to provide or add value?
I mean, there's plenty of ways people can add value into a meeting. And again, it depends on the structure. The nice thing about Zoom these days is you can drop things in the comments and people can track it. But if it's active discussion, hopefully your facilitator is leaving space for that discussion. And if they're not, go old school. If you're in the same room, I always tell people, I say, go old school. And they go, what does that mean? I go, raise your hand.
Yep.
If you don't understand something, raise your hand. If you have some feedback at some point, raise your hand. Now,
totally
keep in mind that
too.
feedback, just like in class, that may or may not be, you may not get picked to discuss, But
Right.
I think in most cases you will, especially if meetings are the way they're supposed to, which is less than 6 or 8 people max.
Right. The two pizza rule. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna put in, so adding value, and I think what Brad's talking about is in line with kind of a broader idea, which I'm going to call encouraging others and leading by example. I've often
Yep.
found, as somebody
Good
who's
point.
quick with ideas, if I'm not careful, I will be the one with the ideas, but that actually discourages others to,
Mhm.
to share theirs. So I might have a really ready
Yep.
answer, but my ability to then pay attention to what's happening in the room and encourage others to share, I have found is a kind of a lesser form of facilitation, but it's a really important one. Me raising my hand also, like to Brad's point, makes it okay to raise hands. Me asking a question makes it okay to ask questions, especially if I'm recognizing that the dynamic in the room needs a little bit of it, needs a little bit of an injection, or needs a little bit of support and help. So I can help the leader
Mhm.
by unofficially leading others. There's a group that I regularly participate in. There's a person in the group who always has the most amazing insight, but is the last person to share if you don't find a way to work him in. And I've learned to pay attention to him kind of out of the corner of my eye and see when he's getting ready. And then I'll say, okay, Andrew, I see you got something. What do you want to add? And just doing, I'm not in charge of the meeting. It's a no level kind of meeting. But recognizing when somebody has something to share and intentionally taking my ability to get a word in and using that word to pull somebody else in adds a
Right.
lot of value to the meeting, far and above beyond me, because I am seeing where contributions are ready and pulling them in with my ability to jump in. So now
Mhm.
I'm typically an extroverted and quick responder in meetings, but if you're of that style, you can actually add more value to yourself by almost like ceding your time and handing off your turn and using it to pull other voices in.
Yeah. I have often been the guy who sits in the corner and then everybody waits till the end in a lot of my committee stuff. Mostly
If
because
if what
I
you're
go,
adding, yeah,
if I speak up, I'm going to be given something to do, or
so you're dodging. Noted, got it.
uh, or if I speak up, I guess this goes back to something like if you're paying it, something that I've learned, and it wasn't from, but this is somebody who I know people will pay attention to. Simon Sinek is a guy who always
Oh yeah,
says, wait to be the last person to speak in any meeting, and it gives you a number of advantages. And that's not where I learned it. I just know that that's somebody who people follow. Um,
yeah.
and I learned it actually from my father,
Hmm.
who was very adamant about playing dumb, right, in order to create understanding, not only for him, but
Yep.
for everybody else, but also to get buy-in. But he also said that,
Mhm.
hey, I sit back, I listen to what everybody else says first. And then if I'm given a chance, or if I feel strongly enough about something, I will then do it. But his point was to this, is that just because you put an idea out there in a meeting doesn't mean people are going to do it. So
Yep.
it's better to get people who are going to execute on their own ideas, which means giving them the time to verbalize it and communicate it clearly and validate it in front of the peers, than it is to get the best idea out there or the right idea out there, because momentum and movement is very important.
I love that idea. Um, so understand how ideas and action work together.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes to ownership, right? We are generally
does.
in love with our own ideas, right?
Yep.
And so if those ideas are going to get out there and that's going to create, I mean, we've all been in a meeting where somebody says, you know what we should do? And somebody says, great, you're in charge of that now. And there's pros and cons to that approach, but I like the idea of, if my goal is to be a great member of a team and not just
Mm-hmm.
a solo performer, then
Mm-hmm.
then the more I can do to encourage that team's own participation, the better my participation, because then I'll be able to play in my best lane by encouraging everybody else to play in their best lanes, right?
Correct. Yep. Yep. And so sometimes this is where, and you have to look at it from the standpoint of people have egos. And so you have to let certain ideas play out and fail in order to get to the best idea, which for many people is very frustrating. At the same point in time, especially when you're trying to manage people, it also can create great understanding that there's empathy long-term and a willingness to try things, even if they fail.
I'm getting the scene from Braveheart, with hold, hold, like we're just that willingness to wait. And it's so hard for so many of us that have an idea or a great idea or an insight. It's so hard to do and so valuable. It's hard to do and it's worth it because of the value that comes out in the waiting. Here, this ties up here. So let me just link that quote bubble appropriately. There's a ton of value in that, and it's not intuitive for a lot of us. What's intuitive is to jump in with your ideas. No. And so much gets created. I know, but so much gets created in the waiting, right? In that open space. Thank you, Mr. James, for it's your dad. Thank you for the insights. This is really, really valuable. A lot can happen when you're willing to let people take ownership and be patient enough to create the space where that happens as a member of a team. And often we don't realize as a member of a team how important the way we participate actually creates participation in everybody else. We think that's the leader's job, but the dynamic that you can see and observe as a peer leader is huge.
You can lead through following. And it's, I think, so often because of the way that we're raised in our education system, is you don't think you can do that. And unfortunately, what I'm describing creates a lot of challenges for people. At the same point in time, it creates, I'll put it to you this way. If you choose to lead by following and just be an example of a good participant and a good teammate and a good follower, you will end up commanding way more respect, way more credibility, and way more trust in the long run.
So thank you, Brett. I'm gonna make a reference here. So folks, I'm not gonna do it justice. TEDx talk called "How to Start a Movement," aka the first follower, Derek Sievers. Long story short, he talks about when you're starting a movement, there's the leader, and then there's the first follower. And what makes a leader is the first follower. If you don't have a follower, you're not a leader. Once you have a follower, what the follower's job is to show everybody else how to follow. The follower is so undervalued in our leadership culture. We're talking about being a great leader, and we don't talk about being a great follower. And it's so important to understand that how you follow is actually leading a whole bunch of other people who are going to come 2 and 3 and 4 and on thereafter. New followers follow the first follower much more than they follow the leader, because you're setting the pace on how to follow, and how to follow and how to lead are two different worlds. And that's the value of that. So, thank you for mentioning that, because it's so important.
And I think,
so undervalued.
and this gets into, like, as you're scaling your business, you as the CEO, whatever principal of your business, you at some point have to actively take a step back to enable your second person or your number 2 to actually be the leader of people in your organization. You can focus on working on the business rather than in the business. And this is something in transformational leadership, when I work with people who are in those modes, that is the toughest thing for them to grasp. And sometimes for me, like, getting that point across is really difficult for people, because we've been told for so long and taught for so long, you got to be the front man, you got to be the center of attention, you got to be the spotlight, you got to do, and realistically,
that's where the glory is.
You can do that, of course, but this is where humility and looking and having the self-awareness that sometimes letting things happen, setting a precedent, holding people accountable to those things, but having the empathy to go, fail. I mean, this is something that you and I have talked about a lot this year, because I've made this a goal of mine to figure this whole balance thing out.
Right.
Actually been digging into it a lot. But the more I dig into it, the more I go back to the roots of how I was taught leadership was not to be the charismatic leader. The charismatic leader is a great leader, and there are skills and qualities that are necessary for that. But the charismatic leader typically is not the servant leader in most cases.
Right. Right.
So understanding where you fit in that spectrum is really important to grow and stay. Yep, exactly.
I love that.
That's all I got for you today. I know we got to get off of here because we've been on here,
Yeah.
but
let's hit a wrap. Go for it.
Yeah, we need a break.
All right. Well, we just learned all about. Wait, are we breaking up? Are we just
I don't know. So we friends, we just dove into all this meeting stuff. We talked about the last 4 episodes about meetings and everything. For those of you who don't know, putting on a show like this takes a lot of effort from a lot of people, including our producers, our teams, our guests, everything. And right now, Michael and I are trying to manage, since all the businesses are growing, we're trying to manage and scale up in these very interesting times. And so he and I have decided to take a break from producing live shows for at least a little bit. What that means is we're going to run replays for you. I think you'll probably get some solo stuff from me, or maybe some solo stuff from Michael along the way. We might even get, but it might not be live. And we may end up getting some other things put together as well. But I just figured we'd throw that out there for those of you who that's what happens when you're driving and you gave a call. All right.
Speaking of,
end up.
So we, folks, we've been talking about making improvements. As Brad said, we've got a lot of, as I'm sure you all do, a lot of stuff going on. So we're going to take down the live show for a bit. We're going to keep the cadence though. We'll still be here every Wednesday at 1:30. You're going to be able to catch best of
Central
shows, some
Standard.
highlight reels, some Central Standard Time. Thank you. Some solo stuff on either side. We'll still be here. So make sure, if you've been meaning to get caught up, now's a great time. We're going to put some of our best stuff out there. If you've been waiting to introduce a friend to the show, now's a great time. Our best of stuff is going to be out there for the next few weeks here. When we come back, we're going to be making a big run. Today's episode, this is episode 95 live 95, live on the Big 95. And we're going to be coming back for the big run from 96 to 100. And you know that we, in true sketchy fashion, we will have even bigger and better sketchiness coming your way. So we're on a break. It's a short break. It's not forever. We promise we're coming back. We just need a little bit of time away. We just need some space. We just, some time to not find ourselves. We went back to the retreat. In the meantime, folks, you know that we'll be here. We'll still be responsive. So in the meantime, send us your questions, your ideas, your complaints, your anecdotes, your memes, your ideas for guests and topics to info@sketchyideasshow.com. And a member of our production team will get back to you appropriately. So come back next week. We will be here. We will not be live. We will be great, if not best. And in the meantime, remember, just because it's a sketchy idea doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. We'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Take care.